I think it's pretty safe to say that the future of the Star Wars franchise seems to be quite expansive, not just with their books, novels, comics, and video games, but also let's not forget about the new Star Wars trilogy of films, and the new Star Wars TV series to arrive on Disney Plus by Disney and Lucasfilm, that is going to really introduce a brand new timeline and mythology in general to the Star Wars fandom. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, the one thing about Disney Star Wars is that we do know that as of right now, both Bob Iger and Bob Chapek are working very closely together as a team in order to create the proper new Star Wars universe that the fans want to see. Now, of course, this is going to be a combination of books, novels, comics, video games, movies, and TV shows. That's all really going to pretty much align with each other to become as big, if not bigger, than the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that's exactly what Bob Iger wants to do, as well as Chapek. Not that they're necessarily competing with their own brand, but they want to make their other franchise, their other brand, in this case Star Wars, just as big as the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that's all going to begin with The Mandalorian Season 2, by really bringing new steps on board here, by really bringing in a lot of the Clone Wars characters from animation form into live action form. That's just a big start there. So, with that being said, of course, we know that Jon Favreau, George Lucas, and Dave Filoni are all working together also as a team by developing all these different retcons and changes to the prequels, sequels, and originals. That's really going to change our view of the Skywalker saga and exactly how fans will actually perceive it once all these retcons are going to be established. Now, with that being said, of course, what's really intriguing about all of this is that since Kathleen Kennedy's creative power was stripped away by Disney's new CEO, Bob Chapek, fans have seen a glimmer of hope for the future of Star Wars and where it leads both on Disney Plus and for theatrical releases, such as the new Star Wars trilogy of films for the new Star Wars universe that is being developed by George Lucas, Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni. Now, it's explained that currently Lucas, Favreau, and Filoni are developing major retcons for the multiple characters of the Star Wars brand, from the originals, prequels, and even the sequel trilogy era that was highly criticized by the Star Wars fandom. And that really is a big deal because all these major retcons are going to be applied to characters like Rey, Luke, Palpatine, and more. Now, currently, it's explained that they are all working on an important retcon for the character of Luke Skywalker after the events of Star Wars Return of the Jedi that will change how fans view some of the films. It's explained that one of the major retcons are for the character of Luke Skywalker that will be introduced sometime next year in 2021, and that this will change how fans view the character of Luke during the events of The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, as well as The Rise of Skywalker. It's noted that the retcon is set to establish that Luke Skywalker trained greatly with his father Anakin Skywalker during his isolation on the world of Ahch-To, where Anakin Skywalker would eventually teach Luke Skywalker the ability to materialize if he ever needed to come back to life after his death to help his friends and family, and however warned him that if he is to ever use this power, it can only be used one time. Now, we talked about this not long ago, a couple of weeks ago, that Disney plans to use this ability for Ben Solo, Anakin, and Luke, where they can actually come back to life temporarily of use for only one time. And that's going to be very interesting because it's actually considered to be the power of the Whills, who are godlike beings in the Star Wars universe, which was created by George Lucas. Now, moving on, the retcon is set to also establish that Anakin Skywalker's Force Ghost taught Luke the ability to Force project and even guided Luke to doing it properly while trying to reach out to Kylo Ren on the world of Crate from Ahch-To at the very end of The Last Jedi. So that's another thing that really does change your view of The Last Jedi, when you're witnessing that ending scene where Luke is using that ability that literally force-drained him. As Mark Hamill would like to say, it was essentially a force overdose, jokingly he said. Of course, this retcon is set to implement the concept that Anakin Skywalker was the one responsible for teaching Luke Skywalker many Force abilities that the fans have never seen before in the Star Wars franchise, both in canon or in Star Wars Legends. George Lucas is described to go behind these retcons as well, where not just that, but another retcon being developed will place the fact that Luke Skywalker actually once turned to the dark side temporarily during his time on the island of Ahch-To, while experimenting with the ways of the Force, since no innocent people were around him to cause any harm. Luke wanted to know the truth of why people turn to the dark side and how deep an individual can go to tap out of it before it's too late in order to gain knowledge. Now, this to Luke eventually realizing he was actually endangering the caretakers and decided to close himself off from the Force indefinitely until Rey traveled there, where Luke would eventually use the Force again and talk with Yoda that would bring him on the right path. So you can see how all these retcons change how we view the sequel trilogy, and it really is quite fascinating of what Disney's trying to establish. Is it going to be a, controversial type of situation here for the Star Wars fandom? That all pretty much comes down to how fans take it, right? And it also comes down to the writers of how they're really going to utilize this and how they're really going to establish it into the existing canon lore. So with that being said, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know about all this in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to moon we hear them moans again.